Hello everybody and welcome to Toitu to You Curator's Corner episode number 32. My name's Sean Brosnan. I'm a curator at Toitu Otago Settlers Museum here in Dunedin, telling stories about pioneer Dunedin and its people. Now today's story is about John Barr. Not the weaver that we looked at in the last episode, but another important personality of the same name in early Otago. In fact, there were lots of John Barrs all over the place, so we can distinguish this character, as he generally did, by adding Craigielee after his name. This John Barr of Craigielee was a poet, in fact, the poet of early Otago. John Barr the poet was also from Paisley, like the weaver John Barr, but in his case he'd been an engineer and a quite successful shipbuilder in his hometown. But when he and his partner got a bit ambitious and overreached themselves, their business went belly up and Barr decided to emigrate to Otago. He arrived with his wife and children in 1854 and began farming at Wakaari on a property that he called Craigielee, after a favourite spot back in Paisley. The Wakaari farm proved a bit small though, so in 1856 he sold it and moved down to Kaihiku in South Otago to a larger property that he called South Craigielee. He farmed there successfully until 1861, after which he retired to Dunedin. All that time, however, he was writing songs and satirical poems that he performed at social functions and had published in the newspaper, and he quickly earned a reputation among his fellow settlers as a peerless poet and performer, and became the Bard of Otago. So I thought perhaps today we'd take a poet's eye view of the settlement by looking at one of Barr's most famous poems. It's called There's Nae Place Like Otago Yet. And straight away you can hear that although it's written in English, it's English with a difference. Like many of Barr's poems, and just like many of those of his great hero and poetic model Robert Burns, Barr wrote in the Scottish dialect, sometimes called Lallans, which is a useful reminder for us that Lallans was also the language spoken in everyday life by most of the Scottish pioneers in Otago. Others, a smaller group from the Highlands, spoke Scottish Gaelic. So if we were to be transported back in time and wander about the streets of early Dunedin, we might have a lot more trouble than we imagine in understanding what the settlers are saying. And that's probably also why Barr's work, even though it was highly influential among the pioneer settlers, has faded into obscurity since. There's just too many hard to understand Scottish words in it for us to bother reading it. Just too much like hard work. Now to demonstrate that, I've asked my friend Liam McIlvanney, the Professor of Scottish Studies at the University of Otago, who's also a lowland Scot, though he comes from Ayrshire rather than Barr's native Renfrewshire, but it's not far away, to read for the poem for us in that lovely Scottish voice. So here we go.
There's nae place like Otago yet. There's nae wee beggar wains, or old men shivering at our doors to beg for scraps of banes. We never see pair working folk with bockles on their feet, like perfect icicles we called, going starving through the street. We never hear o' breaking stanes a shilling by the yard, or poor folk roup it to the door to pay the needful laird. Nae purse-proud upstart mushroom lord to scowl at honest toil, or break it down that he, the wretch, may feast on roast and boil. My curse upon them, root and branch, a tyrant I abhor. May despotism's iron foot ne'er mark Otago's shore. May wealth and labour hand in hand work out our glorious plan, but never let it be allowed that money makes the man.
Now you might want to read the poem over again, so here it is, and perhaps it would help to know that weans means children, banes is bones, bockles are crappy shoes, cold is simply cold, goan is going, stains is stones, and rupert is auctioning off all your stuff, needful lord, the greedy landlord. Hopefully the rest is a bit more straightforward. And once we get past those unfamiliar words, what we have is a vision of what Otago represented to that first generation of pioneers. They wanted to build a new society here that would be a better version of Scotland, without its poverty, without its rigid class structure and social hierarchy, and as Professor McIlvanney has written in some of his academic work on Barr's poetry, as a triumphant improvement on the old country, an oasis of peace and plenty, free from beggary, landlords, poverty, and most of the other ills of home. I think that's so important for us to remember when we try and understand What was it that prompted our forebears to leave everything behind and travel all the way out here to Otago? And even when we don't know the individual details, we can be sure that it was a vision of something like this, Barr's vision, that motivated them. Now, when this poem was published in Scottish newspapers in 1860, the Otago immigration agents were amazed at what an impact it had on their recruitment efforts. As they wrote to John McGlashan, "It has told. It comes home to Scotsman's heart," and it was simply the best sort of advertisement that Otago could get. And that's the point, I guess. Those pioneer settlers didn't travel 18,000 kilometres over the vast oceans to just simply recreate what they had at home. They came here to make something better. Better for themselves, better for their children, and better for all those like us who come after them. And in remembering that, I think we inherit their dream and also an obligation to keep chipping away at it, to make sure that this place is a better place, and to quote the words of John Barr, that there's nae place like Otago yet. So I hope you enjoyed that little story, a little reminder of the motivation, the vision behind the founding of Otago. And if you did, you might like to subscribe to this channel, hit the bell icon to be notified of future episodes. And until the next time, thanks for watching.